Yeah, we're live. Got my BTR shirt on. I always like getting free swag when I go back to visit somebody. It's super awesome. Tonight, we're going to talk about turbos, one of my favorite subjects, just like we did the last time I was on. We want to take a look at and talk about HEMIs, the Gen 3, specifically Gen 3 Hemi turbos. We know that we understand the popularity of the LS stuff and why it's easy to go to a wrecking yard. You can find the cheap motors there, and you can then apply boost to them. And we know that when you apply boost, especially if you put cam and springs and tune it properly and put boost on an LS motor, obviously good things happen. But the reality is that good things also happen when we do this to a Gen 3 Hemi motor. And the thing is, the Hemi now has been out long enough, and they made a bunch of them in trucks in the 5.7 version for the earlier Gen 3 stuff, and not what I call the Gen 4 stuff, even though I've been corrected on that many times. But on the earlier Hemis, they're pretty inexpensive now, and they're easy to come by. There's lots of those early 5.7s, lots of them that were blown up, which is another thing, and I've mentioned this in a video before. If you're going to buy these Hemi parts, particularly the intake manifold, make sure to shake it really good because what happens is when guys blow these motors up, which they do, mostly because it was, especially early on, it was difficult to get proper tuning from these things because nobody really had the software for them. So they're blowing these things up left and right. Of course, they were blaming the lack of piston strength, just the way that we've blamed everything else on things that blow those pistons up. But because they blow these up, and what happens is when they blow a piston up, it deposits the piston material, obviously breaks in that one cylinder. But in the way that the intake works, because it has reflected waves, it draws those parts back into the intake manifold. And because of the intake design, it goes up through the runner way into the plenum. And then once it's in the plenum, it doesn't really find its way back into stuff, although it can communicate to other cylinders and blow those up too. But the problem is what it does is it leaves a whole bunch in the common plenum. And then what happens is a guy will take that intake manifold after he's bought one from one of these blown up Gen 3 Hemis, and he'll put it on his motor, and then he'll blow his motor up too, because, and we know this for a fact because we've heard this story, time and time again. Plus, I bought a couple of these intake manifolds, and every time I bought them, and nobody said anything about that when they listed them. But when you take the manifold and shake it, it sounds like a maraca. It's like the Hemi maraca syndrome. And so I had to clean mine out. I mean, we had to clean it 4 or 5 times before we finally got all the stuff out. Like I said, once it gets into the plenum, it's hard to get it to position it to come back out, either the throttle opening or for one of the runners. So we had to fill it with water, and we used brake clean air nozzles and all kinds of stuff to finally get it clean. But I digress. That's what happens when they blow up. But the thing is, they can actually take a lot more power than people realize. And the reason that they got this reputation is because guys were blowing them up, but not because it was a strength problem per se from these original motors. We've made 4-digit power levels with these early Gen 3 Hemis by putting proper ring gap in them, having proper tuning, the right kind of fuel, the right kind of air fuel, the right kind of timing, all that stuff. We know that they will actually do that. But my question is and the thing that I like about them, and the reason that I always try to compare them to the LS stuff, is because they're really good head flow, just like an LS does. They have really good intake manifolds, and they have basically the same thing that an LS does. They kind of have everything that they need. The only thing they're missing are the same things that the LS is missing. It's missing cam timing, and it's missing boost. It would be nice if it had both of those. But so once you add a cam to it, you pick up a lot of power. And then once you add boost to it, you pick up a lot of power. And that's always a good thing. So the question for tonight is, well, is the Hemi, is it poised to be a bigger influence in the market? Like, is it going to be a bigger player in the market? Or do you think that time has already passed? Is it not ever going to do anything? If you take a look at, like, if you go out to Hemis out at the strip and stuff, there's lots of guys out there running fast. I wondered if you guys out there had ever run any turbos on any Hemi stuff, and if you've had experience with it. Obviously, we know the factory runs the Demons and the Hellcats and stuff, and so they have factory boosted motors, which make for really good turbo motors. Also, if you replace the fairly restrictive factory blower with a not so restrictive turbo or twin turbos, they can make a lot of power, especially if you do what you're supposed to do and add rain gap, have a good intercooler in there, have enough fuel and have the right timing and stuff. Those factory motors will take a lot of power. But even the junkyard ones, like the go ahead and clean my glasses here, even the ones that I run from the wrecking yard, like I have one that we're getting ready to, I have a 5.7 that we kind of threw together with leftover parts and ran it, and we've done cams in it and things like that, and I think we ran a blower on it. I think I might have run a turbo on it at low boost. Now we're getting ready to put a set of Edelbrock heads and intake manifold on there. We're going to try that and see how it does. But I think that we can make pretty good power with it. I mean, the thing's already, I think we've on some of these motors with heads, cam, and intake, we've done, a fair bit over 500 horsepower. And on the later stuff with the later heads, it's even better. I mean, the later 5.7 heads already flow as much as a ported set of early heads do. So they're already a good start. They're an even better start if you're just going to do a cam upgrade on those. And I have that video up where we ran the Eagle heads, and this was I want to say it was I don't know, I'm going to make up a number because I don't remember what year it was, but whatever year it was that had the Eagle heads and the dual runner intake, both of which were very, very cool. Because when we did the camshaft in it, the thing easily made over 500 horsepower. And it was cool to switch back and forth between the intake runner. And I really want to do that under boost. I mean, we think that the same thing is going to happen there because if it's changing the runner length, then we know runner length is because we've run long runners and we've run short runners under boost, and we know what they do. They do the same thing that they do NA. A shorter runner wants to make power up top and a longer runner wants to make power down below. When we add boost, it just continues to do that. The interesting thing to find out when you're doing that on a turbo Hemi, like a late model one like that has the dual runner intake, is does adding boost change where it wants to cross over, where you want to cross over from one runner length to another? Because ideally where you want to do that and not have any drop in the power curve. It's the same thing with like VTEC on a Honda. If you ever tuned any of those, you want to keep the primary cam on until there's not a drop when you activate the secondary cam. It's the same thing with the dual runner length. It gets really hot in this room because the sun is now shining on this side of the house at this time of day. So those are all things going on with the turbo Hemi. I'd like to see some big power Hemi stuff. I need to go, peruse the internet and find out what guys are doing and see if they're doing the same things that the guys are doing with LS motors. I know that I've run, several. We did a big bang on one, and I've done other turbo Hemis and even stroker versions and all kinds of stuff for the book that I wrote on Hemi stuff. So I've done a few things, but I'm not one of the guys that are out there racing them. So there's guys that are actually putting them in cars and doing stuff with them. Those guys tend to do more than I do. We can't just run everything all the way up on the dyno all the time. We did the one big bang deal, but they're doing stuff. And the thing is that with the racers, every year and every season, they get better and better and learn how to make more and more power because they do what we all do. They turn it up and then they break something and then they fix that, and then they turn it up and then they break something and then they fix that. And pretty soon, when a season goes by, they may have stepped up 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 steps, depending on where they were. So that's how we progress and how we all get faster. So, after a few years goes by, the big bang stuff is nothing. Lots of guys are doing, running that kind of boost and hopefully timing and that kind of stuff to make big power. And I just want to see if they're doing it out there with the Hemi stuff, or if the Hemi, I'm wondering how the detonation threshold is on the turbo Hemi stuff. And the reason I ask that is because obviously the Hemi, it's not a true hemispherical design. It's a semi-Hemi. And the interesting thing though is that the timing needs seem to be pretty comparable for that compared to a typical LS. That when we run the Hemis, we do the same thing. We tune the same way. So we start at a low timing level and then we start adding timing, and we do that same thing with the air fuel. We start at a rich mixture and start leaning it out until it stops making power. And then we do that with the timing curve. We start at a low timing, and we start adding timing until it stops making power. And it typically wants 29 or 30 degrees, just like the LS stuff does. Most of that testing that I've done has been on the earlier Hemis and not the Eagle and Apache stuff. But when the guys from Engine Masters and Brule did the late model one, it wanted about the same timing, and they were playing obviously on that one was kind of cool because it was a VVT motor, so they could play with cam timing too, which is a big thing also. I mean, a big thing for making average power production. So that Hemi had good heads. It had a dual runner intake, and it had variable cam timing, which is really, really good when you have an OEM application, when you're trying to have like a really broad power curve, because that's what, and this goes along with the comments that I get all the time when I do dyno testing, that people just want to be able to step on the gas and have all the torque. As soon as they step on it from idle, I've had people tell me, okay, I want to see the power curve from idle to 6,500 RPM. What they want is to be able to step on the gas and have all the torque there. And that's what all of these things are particularly on the Hemi, having variable cam timing, having enough compression, having good head flow, having a good intake manifold, having dual runner intakes, so that you can have this broad power curve and have that immediate torque to make it real easy to just step on the gas and have everything there. You know, heaven forbid you should have to downshift and drive the car properly. But you know, that's the thing, is that's what guys want, is they want to be able to just do it, just step on the gas and have it all be easy and have it all work for them. But the Hemi stuff is really cool, and I like the fact that there's plenty of power potential there. And I know that the LS guys and the Hemi guys, and I'm sure the Coyote guys, everybody gets together and argues about which deal is better. But the reality is all of those combinations can make an insane amount of power. There's no limitation in the amount of power that you can make. It's so easy to make way more power than all of the other things that you have the capability of harnessing: transmissions and drive shafts and rear ends and brakes and driving talent and chassis and, you know, all of that stuff. Because if you have 1,000 horsepower and you could put every bit of that down, and you have a 1.0 60-foot time, and you're making everything work, then you're definitely in the minority, because that's a very rare occurrence. Most guys that have 1,000 horsepower are running nowhere near what they should be with 1,000 horsepower car. They just have more power than they could put down, but it's also helping them because the extra power is getting them past some of the other things that they should be doing, having the right converter and getting the 60-foot time and having the suspension tuned and all that stuff. They just charge really hard on the big end to make up for all of these problems that they're having, at the beginning of the track, which is usually where most races are won anyway. Usually it's on the leave that the guy gets gets a hole shot on somebody, and then it's hard to run a guy down even with a whole bunch more power. But the Hemi stuff works really good, and I'm excited about. I'm going to be going down and doing more testing with the Hemi stuff, obviously, in addition to everything else that's on the list, including the 4200, which is probably the next thing. I'm going to be heading down there and hopefully getting that thing up there and running it, and that will be cool too. I'm excited to see after Calvin went out and showed everybody how easy it is to go 9s in those things. Apparently, you just add boost to it and E85 and a turbo 400 transmission and put that in a car, and away you go. I mean, it's great when guys go out and do that stuff and make it look so easy. Then that makes a lot of other guys do it, and then everybody learns, and the industry evolves, and people go faster, and that's how it all, that's what makes the world go around. So let me see what you guys are saying about some of the Hemi stuff. We'll get to some questions here. Let me scroll on back. Back it up, back it up. Julius is here. What's up? Glenn, Mike, Mark, everybody. Blown hemisphere. Yeah, the Hemis do breathe well. The airflow that the Hemi heads flow, especially the later ones, are really, really good. Long runners, classic cruiser, long runners or short runners? Which long runners do one thing and short runners do a different thing? What are your thoughts on the 2.4-liter turbo from the Dodge, and can you big bang that? That would be cool. I do see those in the PT Cruisers and stuff. I see those pretty often at the junkyard. One thing I don't see, and the other thing that I wanted to talk about tonight, one thing I don't see are any 2.2-liter turbos. I've been looking around a lot for those and haven't seen any. I think I have a line on one. I talked to the same guy that I reached out to, and we've been going back and forth about me getting an Omni from him, which is very cool. and also possibly a complete motor that I could run on the engine dyno, and we'll run that with an aftermarket ECU. So we won't have to worry about a wiring harness, and well, we'll have to do a wiring harness for the Holly, which we will run it on. But we also don't have to do a factory ECU, which is obviously limiting. Now I'll have that in the car, and that's what we'll run in the car more than likely, and unless I go crazy and do something crazy with the motor, but probably not. But running one on the engine dyno and having an aftermarket ECU will allow us to eliminate a lot of stuff, and it'll also make it a lot easier to do consistent pulls on everything. That way we're able to make changes so that we can do different size downpipes and different turbos and stock exhaust manifolds versus tubular headers, and different intake manifolds, which I will make one again for that because they need it. In the thing, in all of the reading that I've been doing on the 2.2 liter Chrysler and the 2.5, the most of the things they've been talking about are just the different factory intake manifolds, and nobody's talked about putting their own design on there and whether or not that works. And we know that it does, and even if all of the 2.2 liter experts say something, we know that, you know, just from a physics standpoint, that they have to do something. So I think there's definitely some power to be had there. Maybe guys have already, I'm sure guys have already done that. They've been out for forever. The other interesting thing what I was reading is that a lot of guys are talking about camshafts on these things. And the general consensus was, from a lot of the guys that I talked to, was that cams are not something that most of these guys do. And I thought that that was interesting, because there's no way that a factory cam obviously is optimized for lots of power production. It's obviously not optimized for the RPM range that you would want to run to make a lot of power, especially if you port the head. There's got to be a lot more there. And I'd like to try some different cams for that particular motor and find out how well it works. If it does, I mean, maybe for some reason that particular motor doesn't respond to cam timing, but I would find that hard to believe. It might be that people have not tried the right ones, or that there weren't a lot available for it. But, you know, any motor, any 2 liter or 2.5 liter 4-cylinder is going to respond to, you know, more lift and more duration the way that every other motor does. So I'm excited to try that too. But I'm excited to try the things that everybody else has already tried. Like I said, doing turbo upgrades on them, doing the T1 versus the T2 and maybe T3 stuff, and we'll see how all of that stuff works out. And then obviously we'll upgrade from there, because in the car, it might be nice to drive around with if you have a T1 car and you upgraded it to T2 stuff, having an intercooler there is a good idea, and the different throttle body and intercooler, or exhaust, the turbo and the exhaust manifold and all that stuff. But there's a lot better stuff. I mean, you know, having a better, that intercooler, that factory T2 intercooler is not ideal. I mean, there's a lot better choices for that. A big front mount, or an air to water. We'll try that. We'll try E85. We'll try different injector sizes and all, you know, we'll do all the stuff. And I'm really excited about it, because that's a cool motor, and I haven't done enough stuff with that. And it would be even cooler to, if it works out, that I get this car too. And that will be fun to be able to drive around, and you know, because it's different. I like having a car on the road that not everybody has, and I think it would be kind of cool to have a GLHS tribute car or clone from just a general, you know, an Omni Turbo, a GLHT. But I do like those cars. I think that they're awesome, and I'm hoping to do lots of testing with that too. But I'm every bit as excited about the 4200 turbos for everything. How does the Hemi compare in size to the Coyote? Is the Hemi more compact? Julius, I don't know. I've never done a tape measure on those. I usually don't measure that stuff, only because I almost never have to fit it in anything. It usually fits fine in between the double doors of the dyno. So I haven't measured that stuff. The Hemi heads are pretty big, but I don't think quite like the Coyote. But again, I haven't measured it. John's in the house. Mark feels like that more and more Gen 3 Hemis are starting to get popular, and I would agree with you. There are more guys doing Hemi Hemi cams, which is good. And the more cams that are out there, the more things people are trying and the more good cam profiles we get. And there's obviously no shortage of Mark's right. There's no shortage of popularity for the Hellcat, the Demon stuff, because those things are serious players. Sir Johnson says, I used to have an 84. So that's a real early one. 2.2 Dodge Shelby 5-speed. It would outrun the 80s Mustang 5-liter stock. An 84. Maybe a stock 84 Mustang. The Hemi will get Hoost 305. The Hemi will gain ground when the prices drop. The parts are way too expensive. Yeah, and that's the other thing that will happen with if we get more and more cams, then the prices hopefully will become more competitive and stuff. Are you going to showcase any stroker Hemi with turbos? I do have a Hemi stroker video up already. We ran a Gen 3, a small stroker from the 5.7. We basically turned it into kind of a 6.0 or a 6.1, and that's up there. I do have some other stroker stuff that I can put together. I have a 6.1 block, and I have a stroker kit for it that we can certainly do something on that. Phil wants to put a Hemi in a square body Dakota. That would be cool. Charles wants to know, does the twin plug setup have performance advantages or is it strictly emissions? I think that they did it for emissions. I think it would be interesting to see in performance, and somebody has to have done this just because it seems so obvious that have they run these on just one plug to find out? .510 Kurt Dog. I hope that means that you have a Datsun 510, because that would be awesome. I have a 6.4 Hemi and a 70 Duster. Nice. It can only take 11 to 13 degrees of timing at wide open throttle. I know they got high compression, but we have some crappy pump gas. That seems really, really low for timing in those Hemis. I'm here for the 5-liter small block Ford. We've done lots of those. What are the best? Joe wants to know what are the best factory heads for a 4.8 for power with a stage 3 cam. The best factory head is the one that you have on your 4.8. Sir Johnson also had a Chrysler Conquest. I like those. The Starion Twin with the turbo 4-cylinder Mitsubishi engine. Yeah, those are good, especially the later intercooled one. Coyote Big Bang would be good. I agree. I would like to do that. I would like to do a Gen 2 or 3 though. Joe, what are the best factory heads for a 4.8? It's the ones that you have. It's a 706 or an 862. Mark, I do have Edelbrock heads on the Gen 3 Hemi. I don't know what you mean by the new ones. These are a couple years old. Low boost options for Magnum. Is it a 5.7? Then a single turbo, or there are blower kits for those. The guys from Torque Storm have a kit. I'm sure Vortec has one. I'm sure ProCharger has one. Every cam is a turbo cam. Ryan wants to know, are there any plans for the other guys 4-cylinder Big Bang shootout? It's great to see where they fail. Lots of good examples in the U-pull. Like what 4-cylinders would you want to see? Skinny, yeah, I'm familiar with the Super 60 package. Had its own cam. All 4-cylinders are the other guys. I don't think really the Hondas probably are, and probably not the other 4-cylinder other than a Honda would probably be the Mitsubishi, the Evo stuff, or the Diamond Star stuff. Most of the guys have found no matter what you do, 300 wheel horsepower is the limit. The 8V head becomes the cork. So can the 8V head not be ported to flow more? I know that they have the 4-valve versions, but those have issues too. Team America, you have a 5.4 LS build, okay? A 3.810 bore, 706 heads. What cam would be ideal for a single 88? Ball bearing turbo. Well, how much power do you want to make with that? With a stock head, you can go way into the 4-digit stuff. After you get there, I would recommend porting the head or putting a better head on it. I'm still doing the K24 turbo testing. JV, thank you very much. Got it. Anything other than small block Chevy and small block Ford is the other guys. Team America going in an 88 Toyota Supra. Nice. Good. I want a 5.0 swap a Camaro. So you're going to do, what 5.0 are you going to put in there? Are you going to put it in an OG 5-liter? Like, are you going to do a 305 in your Camaro? Or are you going to do a 5-liter Mustang 302 or a Coyote swap? All of those are good. There's a 6.7 stroker kit for the 5.7. I think I might have, I either have a 426 Hemi stroker kit for the 6.1, or I have something slightly smaller. Ooh, Tom has an 88 All-Track Celica. That's definitely cool. No big bang on a 12 valve Cummins. Open road. My combo is a 426 Gen 3 Thytec head. Any cam. So you want to put a cam in that? Is that what you're asking? 4-liter strokers for the Jeeps. Those are good. Oh, any cam recommendation to make 1500. Yes, you're going to need something fairly big. What are the heads flow? The Gen 3 Hemi Edelbrock head better than the 6.1 or 6.4 head. I don't know if the Gen 3 Hemi Edelbrock heads are better than the 6.1 or 6.4 heads, especially the later ones. I don't really know. I haven't flowed the Edelbrock heads yet. Julius, you want to put a 4-liter on your 5.4 valve? Or how much power are you trying to make? If you're trying to make a lot of power, then you want a big supercharger. Deadlift. What do you think is the limit of back pressure to boost pressure ratio where it's not beneficial to add boost? I don't think you're going to see that. I mean, those two things are going to be correlated, but there won't be a number on all the motors that do that. Trevor, I don't know about transmission, so I don't know what transmission would be good behind the Hemi swap. So Ryan wants to see an Ecotec versus Chrysler versus Ford and any other 4-cylinder you want to add. The problem with that is it's really hard to set up all of those different motors on the dyno. Test an 80s Daytona 2.2-liter four-banger. That's what this Omni motor is. It's a Daytona 2.2-liter. Mine's actually a 2.5-liter, but it's the same kind of thing. Josh, happy to be part of it, man. Other options are the Edelbrock rower or a real 871. What do you think? Again, a standard engine. Julius, you got to just let me know how much power you want, because that will dictate what kind of heads or what kind of blower that you should get. An 871 will feed a certain amount. It would be my last choice. The Edelbrock blower is going to be the TVS, which would work good on your application. It's going to be smaller. It's going to be a 2650 or a 2300. I don't know exactly on the mod motor application. Open road, I'm going to have to try to figure out what kind of you got to tell me what those heads flow, or if you can. Yes, Dodge 2.2. Zach wants to voodoo swap an F100. Craig wants to do a big bang on a 1UZ Toyota. The K24 is still happening. I just talked to those guys the other day. For the 469 comp cam, would you recommend 26 918s or dual springs? I would recommend dual springs, especially if you're going to run boost. Really, even if you're not. A lot of times we run the 26 918s only because they happen to be on the heads that we had when we were doing all these cam tests. A dual spring would be better for that camshaft. So heads flow 400. I'm gonna have to look up some Hemi cams for you, and just send me an email, and I can let you know. But it's gonna be something that's gonna be like a, I would say for a 426, it's probably gonna be like a 239, 248, something like that. Except not all caps. I got that up. Hopefully I got that right. Brian, it would be cool to do a 2.2 and a 2.5 comparison. We know what it's going to do. A 2.5 is going to make a lot more low-speed power. It's going to make the turbo more responsive just because it's a bigger motor. Yeah, if you just want looks, then any of those will work, Julius. 4 liters, lots of guys run those. That's a good size blower. And if it looks better because it's bigger, that works. You can run low boost. The problem is you're going to have to run a really big blower pulley and a really small crank pulley. Ben wants to see the limits of the SRT 2.4 liter. Hipsters and hippies, they re-engineered the 2.2s to the PowerTech 2.0, 2.4, the PT Cruiser stuff and the SRT stuff, right? John has a 2.5 turbo and a cargo minivan. Those are awesome. Daddy Holiday, I'm supposed to be doing some testing with a Godzilla motor, but I don't know if it belongs to the guys at AccuFab. Yeah, Julius, you got to try new stuff, man. The blower's cool. Charles, we are going to see more of the 292. Johnny, what year did the AMC inline 4-cylinder come in the Dakota? Nobody does any Mazda rotary engines. The problem with that is I can't find any rotary engines in the junkyard. Matt, I don't know if you can run the truck accessory on the 6.4 block. I think if you do, I know that when we were looking at the accessory drives on the motors that we had, the front cover is different on the truck motor than it is on the car motor. So the positioning of the accessories and the throttle body position and a lot of different things are different on those. So if you're going to do that, I don't think you could just take the accessory drive off and do it. I think you have to change the front cover too. Mark wants to know, how about the Chevy Sprint 3-cylinder? Know anything about this car? Have you ever heard of it? I had one, and I sent land speed records with it. I still have the motor and a bunch of parts for them. So yeah, I'm pretty familiar with them. The Dodge M4S was their one of their prototypes, right? It was like a show car or something. Comp 942 springs work well in the 2.2, 2.5. I'm going to write that down just in case. Comp. Have to check that out. 942. 2.2 liter Chrysler. Yeah, what's up? Jason, I've been wanting to put a 13B rotary in my Pro Street 70.5 split bumper Camaro, my first car. I'm a longtime fan. What cam should I run in your 13B? Man, I don't know if you should run the stage 2 or the stage 3. That's a tough choice. The SRT 2.4 limits are like 1,400 with the bed plate strapped, good billet oil pump, and rods and pistons. Yes, Mark, the 3-cylinder Chevy turbo is good. We made, I actually compound turboed mine on the chassis dyno, and I ran a Volkswagen turbo on it. I ran a little tiny Garrett turbo on it. I ran the factory turbo, all that stuff that I still have. I did compounding, and I tried to do it all with the vane meter with clicks, which is not, it's not an easy thing. And I had a rising rate regulator, but I had an adjustable one, so I could make it 1 to 1, 1.5 to 1, or 2 to 1, because you don't want a 5 to 1 or 10 to 1 or 12 to 1, because that puts too much fuel in it. So we had that. I made my own. Come on, connection, come back to me. And when we set records with the Sprint, we set 3 records out at the maxed in mine. And the thing was only making about 110 at the tire when we did that. So there was a lot more power to be had. Have you worked on a Z20 LET? No, I'm not familiar with that. JV, I remember one of your videos, you made a custom long runner intake. I think it was for a Ford motor. Have you tried one for an LS motor? As a matter of fact, I have. Julius, I don't even want to imagine what it would be, what it would cost to send a 13B from Australia or New Zealand. Where are you? You're in Australia, right? I have not done anything with the Toyota 1AZ FEs. The Ford Lima engine, that's a good one. Yeah, the Chevy Sprint Turbo, mine got 54 miles to the gallon. Because one thing I did with that car more than I cared about the power was I was trying to get really, really good fuel mileage. So we did a lot of things to that car to get good fuel mileage. Josh, they're getting more expensive now, but a Fox Mustang was a really good choice for that, for getting into drag racing. MB, you get a hold of get your hands on one of the BMW 4-cylinders from Formula One in the late 70s that made 1,500. The cool thing is they have those everywhere in wrecking yards just laying around. You can just go get those. I ran the balance shafts in the 4.3 V6 stuff, and I actually like having the balance shafts there. I know a lot of guys take those out, and because that's one of the performance upgrades that guys make. I like having the balance shafts there. Jordan wants to know about the pre-Gen 3 4.7 liter V8. I've never tried one of those on the Dodge side. Sir Johnson, I don't have enough room for all my stuff. I have to start getting rid of it. Yeah, if you want something else, that's right. You got to at least make room to put your other stuff that's going to sit around, right? That's how I am. 426 versus 440. Stroker on a 6-1 block for boost. Black Blood, I would always go with a smaller motor for boost. I would rather have the integrity of you don't need a lot of stroke, and I'd rather have the integrity of the bore size of the cylinder wall thickness, because the boost is going to more than make up for any change you have in displacement. As a matter of fact, I would tend not to do a stroker at all, because with a 6.1 or a 6.4 and boost, you can make 1,000,000 horsepower. So Brian is saying replace the balance shaft pan for the 2.5 liter, that it's no good. Okay, that's good information, because I do want the thing to handle. What I'd like to do, like I said, is I'd like to make a GLHS clone, and so I want to have conies on it and sway bars and stuff. So I want the car to do. I don't want it to be a drag race car. I want it to be an everything car. Got to answer my wife there. Saturday night. Team America. Great movie, by the way. Brian at BC has coilover setups for the Omni. Cool. Jordan, which 6-cylinder? 6 point something liter is your favorite? And I don't really have a favorite. My favorite is always the next one that I'm going to test. All of those are for all their performance stuff. What's the horsepower stock on a 4.3 crate motor? I don't know which crate motor you're talking about, but the 4.3 liter V6 is the highest horsepower one is near 200. Until you go to the brand new ones, and they make a lot more. You rather JV, did you reach the limit of runner length on the LS where you saw no more torque? I didn't do. Trying to think on the. I'd have to go back and look and see. I don't know where we saw. I don't know how long we made the dual, because it was a dual runner or a dual plenum style when I did it way back. So I have to see how long we went. SRT8 Live, take a look at the new comp stuff that they have. The new cams they have out for Hemis actually work pretty well. Yeah, the front-wheel drive, there are guys running 10s and I'm sure 9s with the Omnis, if that's what you want to do. I don't have any interest in building a car like that. I would rather have it just drive around and be fun and be a turbo car and be able to test it and stuff. That's not. I'm like I said, I don't want to build the only 8-second one or 7-second one. That's not what this is. I'd rather have something I can just drive around and have fun with. Ooh, a neon SRT4. All the SRT4 guys are going to yell at you for calling it a neon. David, I want to know who keeps thumbs downing the live videos. I mean, you don't always talk about what I want, which is a Suzuki 1.3, but I do like those, especially in a Swift, because those are awesome. But the title always states the subject. That's right. So it's easy. It's like people complaining about what's on TV. Well, Why go to all the trouble about complaining about the thing that's on TV when you just go, hey, look, there's a lot of other channels that I could turn on and watch a different channel. But I do like those little Suzuki Swifts were cool with the little twin cam 4-cylinder, and those are awesome. Craig, I do like Randy. He's a good guy. I've met him before, and he's a heck of a driver, and he's just like a great, super great guy. SRT8, you'd put a mild cam in it if you're going to put boost on it, because the boost is going to do all the things that you want. So you put a supercharger on there, you put a turbo on there, and a daily driver, mild cam. It drives around, it feels good. It uses a stock converter if this is an automatic. And the turbo, you can turn it up depending on what fuel you put in it. If I was running a turbo, I would try to make it so that I could run E85 on it, or at least make it a dual fuel deal so that you could switch from back and forth to pump gas. Just drive around on pump gas on very low boost. And then when you turn it up, you could put E85 in it. And also I would put ring gap in it to make sure that you don't hurt it. Sir Johnson, you could do that. If you want an everyday drag car, you could in a Lima engine in a Datsun pickup. That's kind of unique. An Opel GT, I would say yes on. Vegas are hard, and Monzas are kind of hard to find. Fox bodies are not as hard to find. Datsun pickups are a little harder to find. The Opel GT would be my favorite of those because I just think it's cool. It's the little Corvette. Let's see. I'm into small block Chevy old school, and I have a 2012 Silverado. So are you going to swap an old school small block Chevy into the 2012? Yeah, I think, John, I think that the Omni would get good mileage. I think that that's going to be a function of the tune. So maybe it's I'd like it to be down to West Tech and do testing on the chassis dyno and drive it back. That's a 900-mile trip for me, so it's very important that the thing's reliable more than anything else. Brad, hi, I'm a new subscriber who's into Ford Windsor, so there's plenty of videos up for you. Take a look at all the playlists for 5-liter stuff and both NA and turbo stuff. So there's plenty of stuff to look at. I've done endless amounts of Windsor testing. So welcome. Buick Roadmaster Wagoner. That's another good. Those are also good choices. The stock pistons are fine. We've run 1,000 horsepower or more with the stock pistons, as long as you have ring gap in them. We didn't need our stinking torque to yield bolts. Oh, 72 C10. That's a good one. 4.6-liter V8 is a great engine for the 99 town car. Yep, I would supercharge the engine so I could go faster. Yeah, if you add boost to it, it will be an even better motor. David, that's why we're all here to learn about performance in general. Right now, I'm only a performance private, but after a while, I'll be be a captain and a colonel and then a general. Yeah, Sir Johnson, that's the thing. You spend a bunch of money on your project car, and it's worth that to you, but it might not necessarily be worth that amount that you've put into it to somebody else. They're usually looking to, and usually what happens is they know that it would cost $20,000 for them to do it, but they can buy it from you for 12. They just made a really good deal. Yeah, that we do it big here in the U.S. Julius. I myself like little cars. Like I like the Sprint Turbo. I like all the Kai class cars. I like the BMW Isetta. I like little cars myself, but they do like big, mostly trucks here. Brad, we've run nitrous on lots of Hemis. I have videos up. Again, if you're gonna run lots of nitrous, then put ring gap in it and it will work fine. Kyle said, "Don't be scared of getting started with an early 2.2." This is an early one. This is an 85. Oh yeah, I forgot, Tom. I put the snake video up. I have another one going up tonight too. Rob Zilla has a good question. With all the knowledge you have, and that's not accurate, does new engine performance excite you? It does, because I really like the new technology. Just like when, everything was carbureted back in the day, and then they went to fuel injection, and everybody thought, oh, this is the end of performance. And it's really not. It was the start of performance. And then we started adding new things, variable cam timing, variable intake runner length. We got into VTEC, which was decades ago, but all of that sort of technology. And now even the electric stuff is cool, because having a motor that makes peak torque at 0 RPM, and the amount of like instant throttle response that they can give and add to it, to a motor that you already have, is kind of cool. The regeneration stuff that they do in Formula One, what they're doing with turbos and stuff, is all of that's cool, because all of that stuff eventually filters down to us, and we get to take part in that. Daniel, hey Rich, didn't bring gap that you did in your K20 build that you did? I'm currently putting a turbo kit together for my wife's Element and need to know what the ring gap was. On the K20 that we ran most recently, the one with the guys from Skunk, we didn't change the ring gap. I didn't even take it apart yet, which we're doing now because we're going to turn the boost up. But we were running, I think we were making somewhere over 600 horsepower. And that was not a lot of boost. I'm thinking it was 13 or 14 pounds. Maybe it was more than that. But it was whatever 620 horsepower was. So it was kind of fine on the 85 with an air-to-water intercooler, run cold, with cold air going to the motor. So all of the things were kind of optimized for that. B20Z, B16 head, all-wheel drive turbo, and an EG hatch. That's really cool. So how do you, Team America, send me an email. I'd like to ask you about the all-wheel drive stuff. What are they doing to do these all-wheel drive hatches? Because I think that's super cool. Yeah, Julius, that's the problem, is that you get the bigger, heavier stuff, and it's not always better. And I can't believe how much a truck is. I mean, it's just, it's ridiculous. Team America, I do like that. We've done a lot of B18s and B20s. We have them in the CRVs. And we were doing the LS VTEC stuff, putting the VTEC head on those bigger motors, and they work good. And that's eventually what made us put together the combinations that we put together to run at Bonneville, because I was running my Civic in the sub 2 liter class, so it had to be less than 2 liters or right at 2 liters, and that was the limit. That's the car that we went with, essentially a B20, a big bore B18. It was an 84 millimeter bore B18. And that's the one that we ran, that we went 227 with in a 99 Civic Si. Yeah, $115,000 for a truck is just ridiculous, Julius. All-wheel drive Honda uses either Civic, the wagon van stuff, or the CRV drivetrains. Okay. So what do they have to do to the body to make that fit? Because they've got to have a drive shaft going from the front to the back, right? And the Civic doesn't have a provision for that. Do they have to cut the floor pan to make that happen? Because an all-wheel drive turbo Civic hatch is very enticing. I've always liked the little Civic hatches. It's got an exhaust tunnel in it, Julius. The Civics do, and I don't know if they run it down that. Notch out the back cross member. Is there a board difference between the B20 and the K20? Do you mean a bore difference? Yeah, the K20 has a bigger bore. And S1 makes conversions, all-wheel drive parts. Vernon, did you get that thing running in the Dodge Diplomat? With the Magnum intake, good choice. They put it through the, Daniel says they put it through the exhaust tunnel and then cut a notch in the trunk to fit the diff. Okay. So they're getting rid of the, in the hatch, they're getting rid of the spare tire well then, right? To fit the four-wheel drive stuff. I know a K20 all-wheel drive would definitely be the way to go. Hub City Performance. I'm going to write that down. I can't believe people cutting up Civics. They should remain factory fresh. So Hub City's it, huh? Cool stuff, guys. I have to get going. It's Saturday night. Thank you guys all for showing up. I will be back tomorrow. I'm going to put up another snake video because I was out catching snakes not long ago. So we're going to do more of that. And then I'll be heading down. Hopefully be doing a whole week of dyno testing here coming up with the guys from West Tech. Thanks for showing up, guys. I will see you later.